Okay, so today I am going to show you guys exactly how I um, forecast revenue for my own business. This is what we're looking at here is an export from Toggle. I use Toggle to track all my hours. These are not my actual clients. These are totally made up clients. Um, but the billable duration is somewhat in the ballpark of what I've been doing. I kind of randomize the numbers a bit, but point is it's based off of real data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly how I go about taking this actual billable duration data from Toggle, and we're going to turn it into a real living, breathing forecast that will tell me exactly how much I'm on track to bill for the current month, and then kind of extrapolating that out for the rest of the year. So I'm going to close this because we don't need it open anymore. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import that data and we're going to prep it and clean it for our forecast. So one of the first things I do, we'll kind of set up the file here a bit. I'm using a personal macro workbook. I will link to that workbook in the description of the video in case you want to use these formatting settings. They're pretty easy. It's pretty easy to set up, but this is my setup and I like it. So um, okay, so next thing we're going to import our data. So I'm going to go to data. We're going to get our data. Now, I'm using Power Query on a Mac. Obviously, all the same steps will work on a PC. It's just going to look a little bit different visually. I have my Finder folder up on another screen here. I just don't want sensitive data going out over the internet. But all I'm doing, suffice to say, is I'm going to find that data that we just had up on the screen. There you are. Okay. So there's my toggle hours file. Go to next, and we're going to select that for a sheet. Here we go. So I'm going to transform this. And all we're really doing here is kind of doing a bit of formatting and cleanup here. So we don't need these kind of bookend columns, remove those columns. And we don't need these first 5 rows. So I'm just going to remove the first 5 rows. And then we will promote this first row to our headers. Use first row as headers. And you'll notice Power Query already takes a stab at reformatting these. So it kind of understands that this is a date, so it's going to read it as a date. This is all text, and it's going to read these as decimals, which is what we want it to. If we wanted to change it, I can either change it using the syntax up here, or go to this transform tab, and I can pick what column I want to change and just change it right here. And then for our forecast, we're actually going to need to create a couple of custom fields here based on the date. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add column date. We're going to add month, end of month. We're going to add week, start of week, and we're going to add year. Okay. And then I don't really like these names, so I'm just going to come up here and call this month, call this week, and then I'm going to call this year is fine. All right, and then we go to close and load, and it's just going to dump that table into a brand new sheet. So let's get rid of those grid lines. Then I'm going to cheat here a bit, go back to my macros, give me a new page. We'll call this working. Actually, I'm going to need a validation page for later, so we'll call this validation. And then I'm just going to copy these first 5 rows and put that here. And we'll call this data. This data is imported from a toggle export. And if you want, you can link to where the file location is. I like to pick a link kind of where the file is as the subtitle makes it nice and easy to know where to save things. Cool. So there's our data. Before we start applying some forecasting rules here, we actually need to create something in the validation tab. So I'm going to call this clients, and I am just going to pull in all of our unique clients. Cool. Make those values, make those hard coded, and I'm going to put a rate here and then an active field. That'll make more sense here in a second. Let's bring that out. These are obviously made up clients, but the idea here was I structured the data such that these 2 clients are not currently active, and so we wouldn't want to include any hours, even if we have hours for these clients in our historic data. We want to include them in any forward-looking forecast. So I just put true here, and actually I can make that a formula, make it even better. True, true, and true. And then I'm going to make these rates up, right? 75, 100, 120, 125. We can make these, before I do that, make this hard-coded, and then we'll call this currency. Perfect. All right, so now for our data, I'm just going to add some columns to this data table, make it nice and easy. So we need a prior month, current month, and next month. And then we're going to say forecast period. And these 4 columns are going to do the heavy lifting for us to tell our formulas what data to include to use in our forecast and which ones not to. I'm actually noticing as I look at this, I need one more field in this table. I need this column to give me the day of the week, and I'm just going to call this day, and then we'll just close and reload that. Boom. Cool. All right, then for this prior month, I'm going to use our settings tab so that whenever we update the settings tab for the current month, it's just automatically going to refresh that data table. So it is currently, we're going to pretend that it's August. The current month is August. So then our prior month is going to be equal to that month. So I'm going to say end of month date, year is going to be 2025. And then our month is going to be 8 for August, and then day 1, and then we are going to add 0 months. Seems kind of weird, right? Since we've got September data here, but we're using August. The idea is August would have been my most recently closed month. And so I want current month to be actually the first month after what I have or whatever I have in the settings page. So these are all returning now. August 31st is the end date. If I put a formula or formatting over here, see it's August 31st, but this is actually going to be a date. I want this to be a logical test to see if this month equals August. So September all comes up false, and then August all comes out true. I'm just going to copy that formula over, and instead of adding 0 months, we're going to add 1 month to that, and then the month after that will be obviously 2. This next month probably is a bit overkill. I don't need it, but I've gotten lazy before and not refreshed my forecast for a couple months. So this is me just protecting myself for when I'm lazy. And then so our forecast period is going to be kind of a nested logical statement here. So I'm going to want and so both of these conditions that I'm about to feed it are going to need to be true. So first thing is we want only active customers. So I'm going to look up this client on our validation tab. So look at that column and look at this column. And if it's listed as true here, it'll come back true. Otherwise it'll come back as false. So that's our first condition. So all of these clients are coming up true. And those are erroring out, which is fine. That's fine. As long as something comes back true, it's all good. It's not going to take those errors. And then our second condition is going to be if it's in this prior month, current month, next month time frame. So this is going to be an or statement, and I'm going to say prior month or current month or next month. Close that out. What did I do wrong? That looks good to me. What did I do wrong? Let's try this again. Oh, I need it to be here. Or this. There we go. So now I get trues and falses, right? So all of my falses are either going to be because they were in July, so I'm not including anything prior to August, or they're an older client. So like these guys are out. Cool. So this is just a column telling us what to include in our forecast baseline, what not to. So clear that out, clear those filters out. And then I'm going to want a current year field in here too. So we'll say this year equals this year. Great. All right, so now all of our data is prepped and ready to go. And then over here to the side, we're going to build our forecast. And for this forecast, I really only care about future dates. So as I record this, it's September 25th. So I only care about forecast for dates after my latest date in the data, which is the 20th, right? So if I come over here, I'm going to want to have a date column, a week column, a client column, a day column, and an hours forecast column. And then now we're going to use a formula which is actually pretty magical. We're going to use a formula called let, and let is it lets you define custom formulas. So the idea here is the date column is going to represent all of our future forecast days, and then it's going to and then the week will be the week start of this date. The client will be all of our active clients, and then our day will be the weekday. Hours forecast will be the forecasted hours on this date. So hardest part here is going to be crafting this date field so that it automatically gives me the future dates for the time horizon that I want it to, right? So I want this forecast to be 9/21 through the end of the month, 9/30. So how do we do that? Well, so I could do, I can calculate the number of days remaining, right? So what I would do is I would say, give me the difference between end of month for my next month. So date 2025, 8/1, 1 month ahead of time. We want that part of the table. Let's put this kind of over here in some working space. And let's put this in a date format, right? So that's the end of my month. And so then I want the difference between today, or the max date in my forecast, or my actuals data, which is the 20th. And I want the difference between these 2 days, right? So I got 10 days left in the month. So the idea here is I do a sequence of 10 rows, 1 column, starting at date max in my data, plus 1 for the by day. So 1 day at a time. I actually don't need the date formula there. There we go. So now 9/21 through 9/30. Now this is great. The problem is I don't have it by client, right? And I've got 3 active clients, so I need this to repeat 3 times. Okay, so next thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to figure out a way to have the dates repeat multiple times. Okay, so how do we do that? First of all, I need to clean up this formula a bit. I'm actually going to leverage my work over here to make this a bit easier. So I'm going to copy this formula, place it here. And I don't need these over here. And I'm going to use this trusty little thing called a let formula. Give it some space. I'm going to say let date equal that, and then return to me date. I need a column here. There. And then now, how do we tell it to multiply by the number of clients? So next thing I need to feed it is client, and this is going to be the filter of this column where this column is true. So let me show you what that looks like outside of this crazy let formula. So just giving me those 3, right? And then now I need the client count, which we will define as the count A of clients, okay? And then my row indices, which is the number of total rows I want, is going to be the sequence of date. And actually I want date count as well, which is just going to be the count A of date. This will be the sequence of date count times the client count. And let's go step those one at a time. And then my expanded date. I need commas after each of these. My expanded date is going to be the index of date. And ceiling math, row indices divided by client count 1. And then I want to return the expanded date. Boom. Okay. And let's put this in the right format. Month, day, year. Okay, so now we got 3 clients. We've got 3 days, or 3 dates for 1 for each of the client. Okay, these let formulas are a little complicated, right? So take your time with this. The idea here is I pass the formula a variable, and then I define the variable, and then I put a comma at the end. And I can put as many variables in here as I want. So I like to give myself space in the formula bar, and that just kind of helps me keep this organized. But the idea here is we're defining the dates, defining the clients, counting the number of dates, counting the number of clients, and then this row indices is saying I need those 10 dates times 3 clients, so I need 30 rows in 1 column, starting at 1 and going 1 step at a time. And so if I were to highlight this, it's not going to give me the array, but the idea is it's stepping through each of these dates 3 at a time for 30 rows. And then to expand the date, I'm taking the dates here, and I am taking 30 divided by 3, right? So I've got 10. This is telling Excel that the expanded dates is going to be 10 dates over 30 rows. Okay. Um, if you have trouble following that, the way I originally came up with this methodology is I asked Grok. And so I prompted AI. AI basically gave me the formula. I had it explain it to me like I was a 2-year-old. And so I was able to kind of learn it and be able to utilize it for my own devices, but that's kind of how I came up with that. The rest of this is going to be comparatively easier. Okay, so in order to find the week, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the date and give it a little hashtag so it goes all the way down. It references the entire array. And then I'm going to do weekday, the same date, and return on a Sunday cadence. And I'm going to add 1. So this basically gives me the Sunday of what I'm of this date. So if I just peek at a calendar, the 21st is a Sunday, so the starting date of the week is the 21st. And then we get down here, so we get to the 28th, flips to the 28th. And this is how we're going to show the forecast by week. And then my clients, all I'm going to do is basically copy this formula over. But instead of giving me the date, I just need the client. So instead of expanded date, I'm going to give it expanded client. And index is going to be client. And instead of ceiling math, I'm going to want mod. And this is going to be row indices -1, client count +1, and then return client. Expanded client. All this is doing is just repeating the same 3 over and over again, starting back with Bob Ledger each time. And that just gives us the exact same length of data all the way down. Now, let's say for the sake of example, this was September 1st. This table is automatically going to grow to be the 2nd through the 30th. And then when I change it to October, the next month, all of these will flip to October. So the beauty of setting it up this way is I never have to touch it again. All I have to do is feed it refresh data over here to the right. And then my day is just going to be weekday of this, and give it that hashtag. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so on and so forth. And then my forecast hours, this is also going to be pretty easy. This is going to be, all I want it to do is give me the average Sunday in my forecast period. And that's what I want you to forecast for this Sunday. So average ifs, my average range is going to be this billable duration. These are my duration in hours. And then it's going to be by clients for all of these clients. Make sure I give it that hashtag, the #. And then for the day, as defined here, where the forecast period is true. Now, sometimes I'm going to get a div 0, right? Because I didn't do work for that client on that day. That's fine. All I'm going to do is wrap this whole thing into an if error. Give me 0. And there we go. There's a forecast. There's my forecast. Okay, so now how do I bring this all together? Right? We're going to create a new tab. So developer macros, give me a new page. And we're going to call this revenue. And so then this is going to be our current month forecast. And then for my customers, or call this clients, I want these to be active clients only. So I'm going to filter on my client list only where true. And then I could wrap this in a unique formula to return unique values. It's kind of overkill. I don't really need to do that. But the idea here, again, is if one of these clients goes away, I just on this page remove true, and I'll no longer forecast it. Okay, that forecast automatically on this page has already excluded that client. And so these formulas are doing all the thinking for me, essentially, is the idea. Okay, so I got my clients, and then I'm going to need a rate. This is just going to be an X lookup off of this value or this array on this tab. And there's my rates. And then this is going to be billable hours. Okay, and then now we're gonna outline the weeks. Okay, so I'm gonna say filter on my data for these weeks where the current month is true. And I'm gonna wrap that in a unique wrap that in a transpose to lay it out horizontally. Okay. And if I make those headers and then month, day, they're my 3 actuals weeks, right? And then I'll need to sort these. So after I grab the unique ones, I want to sort them. So 831, 97, 914, and then I also need my forecast weeks. So for that, I'm going to do the exact same kind of thing, but I'm going to filter on, I'm just going to give me the unique weeks in this forecast table. And transpose that. Now, these are 2 separate arrays, right? I don't like that. So quick, easy fix is we can H stack this whole thing. So H stack, comma, boom. Now I got one unified thing. Last thing I want to do is, it is not entirely out of the realm of possibility that I could have forecasts and actuals that cross weeks, right? So just to be safe, I think what I'm going to do is wrap. I might have to do that before. No, that worked. Okay. So now this is just going to be unique. All right. So from here, all we got to do is sum our actuals and our forecasts. So we'll sum up the billable duration by client and then by week. And if we use our array formulas, we get data across all of the weeks. I'll get zeros for forecasts for the time being, so I just add those in. Again, because we're doing this at a daily level, all I gotta do is add the two together, actuals plus forecast, and I get nice blended metrics across all of the weeks for the month. We'll just clean up the formatting here a bit. And then we want to give ourselves some space, because with these array formulas, if we are lucky enough to sign a new client and I have our totals too high, we're going to get a spill error. So if I just kind of type in total, see, we'll get a spill error. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of grace here. I typically give myself 10 rows, punch in the total, and then we'll just sum up the billable hours. From there, we can add a total for the end of the month. We can add those up, drag the formula all the way down, and there we go. We have a pretty solid forecast for hours, and now we just got to calculate what that translates into for billing. So copy over our dates, and then we will multiply the rates by the hours, and there we've got billings. We'll just clean the formatting up here a little bit. There we go. There we go. Cool. One other thing I like to do when I've got billable hours back and forth like this between billable hours and billings, it sometimes helps to put a gray column band around the total so we can easily identify those. So I like to be pretty judicious with the formatting here. I really like to keep it gray and black. It's nicer on the eyes, in my opinion, better than having a bunch of crazy colors here. I'll format these as dollars. Cool. Give us a nice little border here for the totals. Cool. And there we go. What I really like about this forecast methodology is it's pretty flexible. So obviously I'm using it here to do an hour projection, and so I know what my target is for my billable hours at the end of the month. But this really will work with any sort of metric that you're trying to forecast in period, right? So this could be daily sales. This could be instead of client, we might use product category or product category group, and then our project is the category and description is the SKU, right? We could get really super granular with this data, but the overall approach stays exactly the same. As long as we're using very clear forecast period definitions, for what we're going to use as our baseline to calculate those daily averages. It's a pretty solid statistical method to do those types of projections. Now, we will get more sophisticated with this. We could utilize machine learning to do the forecast here, especially if we got a lot of rows of data. We've got a huge time frame of data, and the data is very dense. We can get pretty fancy with machine learning just within Excel. We don't have to leave Excel to get more sophisticated with it. And then on the next video, we're actually going to take this weekly data and we'll extrapolate this for the rest of the year. So if you're interested in that video should be popping up on the screen here. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.